Alrighty. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classic Classic Non-Classic. This is episode number 2341 and Doubleshot number 2235. I have a Doctor Strange Epic Collection and a Fantastic Four more Masterworks. First up we have is Doctor Strange Epic Collection Volume 10. Yes, Volume 10. Infinity War! Collecting issues of Doctor Strange Source Supreme, issues 34 to 47. The second annual, Silver Surfer issue 67, this was the third volume, and Spider-Man / Doctor Strange, A Dusty Way to Death. Written by Roy and Dan Thomas, Ron Martz, Jean-Marc Leffer, Randy Leffer, and Jerry Conway. Art by Dan Lewis, Geoff Isherwood, MC Wayman, Kevin West, Michael Barr, Gary Hertel, Dana Hover, Frank Lopez. The front cover art is Geoff Isherwood, back cover is Dan Lewis and Al Milgrom. This book covers time period of October 1991 and concludes in November of 1992. So we're about part way into the 1990s. 34 and 35 mostly deal with the Infinity Gauntlet. That's mostly exactly what these issues basically deal with. Yeah, and they wrap up basically with the Infinity Gauntlet stuff with basically 35, where basically it's revealed that, well, Wanda's alive in these issues. Also, at one point, they have her basically just in a swimsuit, and they take out the pink stuff, and later on put it back on for ink into the artwork. Yep, and then basically we just... 36 is mostly 35 just basically with the athlete, but it's guest appearance here galore by Dr. Drew, Clea, Hulk, Scarlet Witch. Wrath thought with Scarlet Witch meets this issue for the first time. Actually, he meets him in... Spider meets him in the one-shot. Drac Destroyer, Firelord, and Thor, who was Eric Masterson at this point in time. And most what the 35 is, and then we move on to 36. I thought basically with 35 let's wrap this up. Yeah, 35. I think it's mostly put just deal with like it's the epilogue. So basically it includes 35, but yeah, they had to fight Adam Warlock over the Infinity Gauntlet with Pip the Troll. And then here's something though. We have Doctor Strange versus Frankenstein Monster, but not the actual one. It's a guy called Borga. Yeah, it's a guy who claimed to be Frankenstein back in the frickin' 60s. He's a Stan Lee character, claimed to be Frankenstein, but it's not really. This was his brief return, and this was Victoria von Frankenstein. Yep, and she's a character who last appeared prior to this book in Iron Man 102. Yeah, this is only a third of her appearance in the comics. Yep. It's a quick standalone issue. Great cover, though. And then we have the Great Fear Stroke, which involves Marvel's Scarecrow. Yep. And it's a 3-part story. Starts with issue 38 and wraps up with issue 40. We have guest appearance in this book by, well, aside from the Scarecrow, we also have Sarah Wolf was in issues. And basically, it's Doctor Strange versus the group called the Fear Lords. Yeah, and if you're really curious, though, I'm getting close to wrapping up Sarah Wolf's time in the book. Yes, we sadly are getting close to wrapping her time in the book. She has roughly like 1 appearance in this book, and she appears in the annual. And that sadly is it for her. The Fear Lord, comprised of Nightmare, Lurking Unknown, Day Spirit, Dwelling in Darkness, who is a Thor villain, Kalaku, and Nux. This is basically not the first appearance of Fire Lords. They first appeared back in issue 31 of this very book. And mostly put, basically, he fights him. This is the return after the last appearance, issue 33. And then at the 3-part appearance, the next appeared in Journey to Mystery when Loki was in the book. Yep. And of course, we also have Daredevil get involved in these events. Yes, Daredevil, which is strange that he gets involved with this thing. Clay gets basically taken captive. Really interesting story this one is. And in 41, we have a guest appearance by Wolverine, of all people. We have a new nameless one. His successor to the original one. And this is his solo appearance. He died. Yep. It's mostly put basically Roy Thomas is trying to follow up with an old story from the 70s. Yeah, that's mostly put exactly what this book is. And then we have the frickin' annual. Annual number 4 and number 2. Yep. Annual number 2. And number 2 was part of the Return of the Defender storyline, which has the entire annual. It doesn't have the full story in here for some reason. Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird. Yeah, most of it's Defenders reuniting for a really good, cool story. It's a follow-up to basically something that JMS did. And we have Red Wolf getting a story, get 2 stories in here for himself. We also have a story for the new Baron Blood, who basically is Victor Strange, Doctor Strange's brother. Yeah. And here's a little fun fact about this annual. Despite the fact this is called number 2. Excuse me. There is no number 1 for Sorcerer Supreme. Now you might be asking, Nick, why is that? Why is this called number 2? Why did I call it number 1? Well, there's a reason for that. Because Marvel decided to continue numbering from the annual from the previous volume for the series, previous book, the one and only annual that volume published, and we have this annual here. It's an absolute great annual. I love it. I thought it was really good. Mm-hmm. Then we have 42. We have started more, basically the Infinity War stuff. We have basically Doctor Strange get involved with that. We're also involving Galactus with this great cover artwork by Jeff Isherwood. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Dan Tom must stop writing this book this period of time. Now, if you're really curious, though, the Doctor Strange tie-in for this book is mostly in this book, from issues 42 to 47. Yep. It's mostly put basically Doctor Strange's involvement in the war, Infinity War. It's also got appearance by Silver Surfer and Nova. 43 is sadly the penultimate appearance of Sarah Wolf in comics. Yes, I think so. Yeah, she appears one more time after this in the third annual, and that's pretty much it for her. Yeah. Seeing the Infinity War stuff is interesting at best. Yeah, it also takes on the Juggernaut. By the way, Nova in here is not Richard Rider in these issues. It's actually Frankie Ray, one of the heralds of Galactus. And deals with the verse of death in this issue. There's actually, I think at one point he deals with a imposter Doctor Strange. Yes. A guy known as the Necromancer. Yep. He basically, for some reason, decided to wear the costume that Roy Thomas gave, the outfit that Roy Thomas gave Doctor Strange back in the early set. Basically, this outfit pretty much killed the comic book. And I'm like, I guess readers probably were reading this point and they're like, oh no, not this outfit again. But wait, it's not old Doctor Strange. And he's from Counter-Earth. Yes, seriously. And here's the thing about this guy. This guy last appeared back in Strange Tales 138. You're thinking, really? Yeah, really. He appears in this issue and pops up for issue Infinity War. He only appears a few times. After this issue, he appears in the following issue. He appears also in Infinity War 5, Infinity Watch number 9. And he makes one appearance after this in Infinity Watch number 9, New Avengers 53. Which, by the way, this issue came out in 2009. The final issue published in this trade here. Strange Bedfellows. We love this name of the story here. Yeah, here's the strange thing about this guy. Like, 1992, and makes return 17 years later. Yeah, but wait, we're not done yet with this book. Oh no. We have this really cool one-shot. Called Spider-Man / Doctor Strange, Dust Away that would yes, Roy Thomas wrote this with Jerry Conway. Yeah, and also the fighting Xanadu was first of these two have probably fought him since his debut appearance back in Amazing Spider-Man number 2. Yes. Though Xanadu he basically appeared sporadically over the years. Yeah, it's like after that debut annual, his next appearance is in Marvel Team number 21, which also features, this was the second time they fought him, and then he pops a few of Marvel Fanfare, this one shot, a few issues of Strange Avengers, and appears an issue of Punisher War Journal, and that's it for the guy. Yeah. Mostly deal with this woman named Madeline Morrison, who basically appeared in that second appearance. And this is like someone who basically Xanadu fell in love with, and she, of course, will return after this one. It's a really cool one shot. We also have Spider-Man meeting Rick Roth for the first and probably only time. And of course, what I'm talking about, basically, Doctor Strange just stopped him in time because he's basically his apprentice. And it's really cool. Like, Marvel loves doing this at times over the years, where they have Spider-Man team with either Daredevil, Wolverine, Doctor Strange. These three in particular, Marvel loves teaming with these three. Occasionally the Punisher. The reason why, because in book, these characters got great chemistry with each other. That's mostly the reason for these team-ups. Excuse me. In my opinion, it's really cool. Of course, also, he does team with the Fantastic Four, obviously. But individuals, mostly, like I said, just Doctor Strange, Daredevil, Wolverine, occasionally the Punisher, whenever they're on good terms with each other, because a lot of times these two like fight each other more than just team with each other. Human Torch, obviously, or basically Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four is the only group he really teams up with anyways. Female characters, the only one outside of his own cast they probably likes to team up with is probably Kamala Khan or Carol Danvers. Those two in particular he likes to team up with. He doesn't team with hardly anybody else. Like, anybody else aside from those two, it's a very rare occurrence. Though he has also teamed up with Richard Rare and Nova. Yeah, basically sort of mostly put Spider-Man sees himself as a mentor to some younger heroes. And he does seem like sort of a mentor, but not a full mentor, to the Sam Alexander Nova. That's mostly the job for Richard Rider. But yeah, but this one shot's fantastic. I love it. Though he does come back after this one, don't worry about that. But this epic collection was really good. I give this book roughly a 10 out of 10. There is sadly only 2 more epic collections to be released left. There is, of course, Nightmare on Bleecker Street, and of course, Afterlife. And that's it. It would be something in my hands on Nightmare on Bleecker Street. I'll probably get it maybe soon in the future, but who knows. It will just depend upon if I'll be able to get it or not. If not, I'll try to get it from the library because I really want to view this one. Or I can basically just view individual issues. But after that one, I would do the in-between issue between that book and Afterlife, and then the Afterlife, and I'll be done with this book. Alright, so next up we have is Marvel Masterworks Fantastic Four, Volume 20. Yeah, we have about 3 books left to go, and then I'll switch over to Fantastic Four by John Byrne for a little while. This book collects issues 219, 231. I kind of forgot he did issues for this book. Doug Moak. Yes. He does pretty much all the issues in this book except for 220, 221. Those are by John Byrne. Doug Moak does the annual as well. Writers and co-writes issue 231. Bill Sienkiewicz is the main artist for pretty much all the issues but 2. John Byrne knows other 2 issues. 220 also is done by 220 is done by 2 artists. John Byrne, Joe Sinnott. 221 is mostly just John Byrne. Al Mogo does it in issue 231. The annual has 2 artists, George Perez and Tom Sutton. This book covers time period of June 1980 until June of 1981. Yep, roughly 1 year. So basically, we have a set of issues that have mostly been forgettable to me. I kind of forgot the fact that I remember that Roy Thomas, Stan Lee, Tom DeFalco, Doug, I don't really remember him writing these issues, but apparently he did. It's kind of weird. It's like, oh, Doug Moak wrote these issues. Like, the only comic I remember he read from Marvel was just Wear It by Night and Moon Knight. Yeah. Now, if you're really, really curious, how long did Doug Moak basically do this book for? Probably not very long. He just did these issues. He may have skipped a couple issues, but the issues published in this book, yeah, that's all he did for this book. He was on this book for a year and he was done. No, seriously, he was done after these period of issues. Mostly put, we have this opening issue with Captain Barracuda. Yep. Who is a... Oh, no, it's an old Fantastic Four villain. He last appeared back in Incredible Hulk 220. And Giganto, who last appeared also in this book, issue 149. 220, which is one of two basically fighting constructs of the basically weird aliens. Love the cover art by John Byrne, but it's like, yeah, these issues are mostly forgettable. And then fight a guy called Prismus. Like, okay. And that's John Byrne issue. Probably the second issue he does by himself. Then fought Nicholas Starch again, which, of course, last they fought him was back in the 14th annual. This very book. Then I fight Salem 7 again, and then the annual. Fighting someone called Prime 10. Yeah, apparently these are a group of people who pose as their neighbors. Yeah, and Captain Marvel randomly shows up in this issue. Yes, seriously. He just shows up completely randomly. Yeah, Marvel. This is before he died. Yeah, this is like a year before he died. He just randomly shows up in this annual. Yeah, because reading this annual, his appearance is complete random at best. And if you're really curious, though, basically part of this very book, he was also appearing in Marvel's Spotlight at this point in time. Yes, he was. And I still don't know what was the purpose of being here. It just felt somewhat kind of weird. I think actually he just wrapped up his time in Marvel Spotlight. He next appeared back. Surprisingly, he only had 2 appearances after this one. Then a lot of time he appeared at this one, he was dead. His next appearance was in Marvel 2 number 69. Then his next appearance was his death. Sadly, yeah. And then in 224, they go to space. They get imprisoned by this weird guy called the Blind God. And he's only around for just 2 appearances. Yeah. Also, Thor shows up in this book. Yeah. Yeah, reading these issues, it's not like characters show complete random. Like, oh, Captain Marvel's here. Okay. And then Thor randomly show up in this issue. Like, what? And then they find a group called the team with Acolytes of Light, aka the Shogun Warriors. Yeah. Yeah, and this was actually their only appearance out after their book got canceled, issue 20. Yeah, seriously. They kind of appeared in the very next issue, and, well, they also got a Samurai Destroyer. This is his only appearance today. Yeah, deal with some kind of called the Samurai Destroyer. In 227, by Alien Parasites. I'm like, is Doug ripping off Alien with this thing? Because at one point in this issue, Sue gets possessed by this alien, but these parasites, and she gets freed. It's like, what? Yeah. And then we have some people like Franco Mordori and Ego Spawn. This was someone named Laurie Milton, who was dating Johnny Storm. And she only exists in these issues. And the issue Marvel 2 one. I'm like, okay. And then fighting a guy called Ebony Seeker, who is surprisingly still around. He's a cool looking character, but he, after these 2 issues, next period is Operation Sin, which is a good miniseries. It's like, okay. And then in 230, we have a random appearance by the Avengers. Yeah, despite the fact, oh yeah, their appearance is minor. And someone called Fire Frost, who next appearance is in Operation Sin. It's like, yeah, bringing back an operation of these 2 characters. And then 231, Doug Moak's last issue he did, where they go into the negative zone and they fight some guy called Steiger, who is literally a Magneto ripoff. No, seriously, he looks like freaking Magneto. I'm like, what the heck? And there's also the last appearance of Laurie Moulton. And you're like, what? Yeah. That's the problem with these issues. They feel completely random. I mean, got good artwork, but it's almost like Doug didn't care about doing these issues at all. It's a good thing that John Byrne takes over the next issue because he actually has some awesome stuff with this book. But man, reading these issues feel like a sloth. Probably, in my opinion, I mean, I like Doug Moak's work on Batman, Moon Knight, his other stuff, but this, oh boy, this was bad. Oh my gosh, Fantastic Four issues are bad. Oh my gosh, even the ending was bad. Yeah, it's a good thing next book basically is a lot better than this, because John Byrne had a great run in this book, but Doug Moak, wow. I love your work on other books, but this is your worst book. This book was awful. Because, like, you had good artwork. That's the best thing about this run. The artwork is fantastic by John Byrne, Bill Sienkiewicz. But man, it's like Doug didn't care. Yeah, you read these issues, and from my perspective, from my point of view, it looks like he just didn't care. He just created some random characters. Heck, his last character is a Magneto ripoff. He looks exactly like freaking Magneto. Oh, you want proof of this? Let me show you this nonsense. That is his Magneto ripoff. Yeah, my guess is probably the reason why he was let go from this book. It's like Doug probably just didn't commit to writing this, so, and probably because maybe John Byrne was getting tired of the stuff basically he was doing this book. He's like, okay, editor, I want you to take Doug in the book, and I'll take over the writing because I can do a lot better than he can. I mean, look at this guy. Look at this guy. Does he not look like Magneto? Yeah, that is a Magneto. This guy is a little Magneto ripoff. Yes, Doug created a character who is literally a Magneto ripoff. Heck, he does say freaking posing he does. Like, what the heck? Seriously. Like, wow. Artwork, give that a 10. The story, I give that a 3. Yes, it was that bad. Oh my gosh, it was so freaking bad. Yes. But yeah, that's particularly it. Particular review. Next up is Case Closed, and then 2 more comic corners. And yes, they're better than this bullcrap. Yep. I'll do you next video. Bye.